Good morning, everyone. Welcome to part 1 of me watching every Nicolas Cage movie he's ever made. Now, if that was a little confusing, I will clear it up here. I watched this movie, Wild at Heart, and it was, well, for lack of a better word, so wild that I felt it needed a standalone movie, and as I've been making this video, it was way longer than I thought it would be, so I'm making this into 2 parts so it's a bit easier to watch. Now, before I get into it, obviously, huge spoiler warning, I'm going very in depth on this movie, pretty much scene by scene. I'm cutting some things out for time, and because there's a lot to this movie and some of it just is not necessary. So I'm cutting some things out, but for the most part, I'm pretty much talking about every part of this movie. So, huge spoiler alert. If you watch this and you're interested, you should go watch it. If you want to, unfortunately, it is not on streaming. I actually had to buy a CD for the first time in years. So that was fun. So I've got a physical copy of the movie. It's got Nicolas Cage on the front, so I'll probably use it as decoration somewhere. But without further ado, let's get into Wild at Heart. The movie opens with a location card, Cape Fear. Then it says somewhere between North and South Carolina. This is a little nitpick thing for me. It's kind of a pet peeve of mine in movies. I don't like non-specific location cards. What does the in between North and South Carolina part do for us? Nothing. Nothing. It's not descriptive enough. I don't know why they do stuff like this in movies, but that's just a small little nitpick thing for me. After the stupid location card gets off the screen, we see our lovely 2 main characters who are a couple, Sailor, played by the great Nicolas Cage, and Lula. As they are leaving, a man comes up to Sailor. He says that Lula's mom told him that Sailor tried to get busy with her in the bathroom. Yes, Sailor's girlfriend's mom says Sailor tried to get busy with her in the bathroom. Because of that, this man has been paid to kill Sailor. Now, this guy wins Hitman of the Year. Instead of, killing him, he pulls out the money, shows it to him, and says, I was given this to kill you. Then also, I slowed it down, watched it like 5 times. I swear he only pulls out a couple of dollars. It's not that much money to kill a man. So this guy is very cheap. And I tell you what, Lula's mom's gets her money's worth. Because this guy announces the fact that he's going to kill Sailor before he does anything. Well, so he tells Sailor that he's going to kill him. And by the way, all throughout this conversation, Nicolas Cage has this really weird smile that's very off-putting. At one point, he just goes like, uh-oh. Uh-oh. It's hilarious, and it's just so strange as his reaction to this whole situation. So the guy pulls the knife, and he goes to attack Sailor, but Sailor's got his number. He stops him, throws him against the wall, and just starts beating the crap out of this guy. Well, they keep going at it, and in the end, Sailor kills the man. And the killing blow, that's like bashing his head into the ground. The sound that his head makes when it comes off the ground is so gross. After Sailor kills him, he goes over the wall, leans against the wall, and very coolly lights a cigarette and points at Lula's mom. Very cool. Very cool. I'll be honest, this opening scene was all over the place. I had to watch it 2 times the first time I watched this movie because I was just so confused. So many characters get introduced so quickly, so many things happen. It was a little overwhelming, but it's kind of a good preview of what this movie's really like. Sailor, despite clearly defending himself from the man trying to kill him, is sent to prison for manslaughter for some reason. I get why movies do this. They want to send their main character to prison, but not make them seem like a bad person. But personally, I think that's kind of lazy, and I think it would be more interesting if they actually did something and they had to redeem themselves for it, rather than just being sent to jail for murder or manslaughter when they were clearly defending themselves. Well, after spending 22 months and 18 days in prison, Sailor is getting released, and he calls Lula's home. But Lula's mom picks up. She says, basically, if you come anywhere near my daughter, I will have you killed. Which, after what happened, that is not an empty threat. Well, Lula knows that that was Sailor on the phone, and she comes down the stairs. And her mom does the whole, you are not to see that boy, all right? And Lula very rebelliously goes, like hell. Obviously, Lula goes and picks up Sailor from prison. But Lula's got a surprise for Sailor. She's got his legendary snakeskin jacket. Now, this snakeskin jacket is very important to Sailor. And you know what? I'll let him tell you why.
Hey, my snakeskin jacket! Thanks, baby! Did I ever tell you that this here jacket represents a symbol of my individuality and my belief in personal freedom?
About 50,000 times.
Sailor and Lula go to a hotel and start canoodling. And once the canoodling is done, they spark up a very interesting and fun conversation. Lula talks about how when she turned 15, her mom said that very soon she would start having feelings. And before she acted on those feelings, she should come talk to her. Well, Sailor interjects with a very fun fact and says that, hey Lula, I thought you were assaulted by your uncle when you were 13. And she goes, oh, well, that is true, but he wasn't really her uncle. He was just a family friend that they called uncle. And she then follows that up with that her mom never knew about it. But here's the thing. They show a flashback of the incident, and after it's done, Lula's mom clearly walks in and knows what just went down, because she gets all mad and starts throwing her purse and stuff at this guy. So that kind of hurts the movie, because there's a lot of flashbacks in this movie. And now, do I believe the flashbacks or do I believe the characters? Is Lula just a liar, or are the flashbacks wrong? Because this movie relies heavily on flashbacks. So this kind of ruins that aspect of the movie. You don't really know what to believe. Well, after that fun and engaging conversation, they make plans to go dancing. In this next scene, we get our first really good look at Lula's mom, whose name is Marietta, and what she's like. And what she's like is a master gaslighter. She is talking to her boyfriend Johnny, who is a private detective, and she is just putting on a master class in gaslighting in this conversation. So Marietta wants to hire a man named Marcellus Santos to track Sailor down and kill him. And Johnny is against this idea. And one of the reasons why Johnny doesn't like it is because Marcellus and Marietta have a history together. It's pretty obvious during the conversation that Marcellus and Marietta are still doing some nighttime face battling. And when Johnny calls her out, hey, are you two still in a relationship or something? She gaslights him into apologizing for even asking such a question.
You been seeing him again?
Oh my God. I don't believe this. Johnny Fairgood, who doesn't even trust his very own Marietta.
They then start arguing about whether or not Sailor was justified in killing the man that Johnny doesn't know this, but that Marietta paid to have Johnny killed. Johnny believes that it was self-defense, but Marietta thinks he's some cold-blooded, terrible murderer. And it's just funny because she's the person who, paid the man to try to kill Sailor. it just once again just shows how manipulative and awful this woman truly is. We then get a flashback of the night of the killing, and we are shown that Marietta follows Sailor into the bathroom, and she is very, very drunk, which is not surprising because she is drunk a majority of this movie. Well, we see them in the bathroom, and it turns out that it was Marietta trying to do the nude tango in the bathroom with Sailor, not the other way around. And Sailor is clearly not into it. So, points to Sailor for not having sex with his girlfriend's mom. We then go back to Marietta and Johnny talking, and Marietta manipulates Johnny into agreeing to go chase after Lula and Sailor to bring Lula back to Marietta. It's time we talk about the age gap between our two lovebirds, Sailor and Lula. Now, and he was in prison for about 23 months, making her barely 18 at the start of this movie. Now, Sailor's age is never mentioned in the movie, but Nicolas Cage was 26 years old at the time of shooting this movie. So that's basically what we can base his age off of. So at the start of the movie, Lula was 18 and Nicolas Cage was 26.
They not like us. 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 They not like us.
As they're getting ready to go dancing, Sailor asks Lula basically why she thinks that her mom wants them apart other than him killing that guy. Because she had a problem with them together before he, killed somebody. We then get a flashback again to the night of the killing in the bathroom. And we get a little more detail after Sailor rejects Marietta. Marietta says that Sailor knows too much. And we learn that Sailor was a driver for that Marcellus Santos guy for a while. And she mentioned something about a fire. There's been a lot of fire imagery throughout the movie so far. And she mentioned something about a fire one night that he was present for. And he knows too much and he has to die. Because we now know the true motivations between Marietta wanting to kill Sailor, he makes a decision that he's going to break his parole and take Lula to California, basically to hide. Now, he doesn't tell her why. He didn't tell her mom's true motivations at this point, so she doesn't know, but she is super hella down to go to California. Before we continue on with the rest of the movie, there are 3 things that I haven't mentioned yet that are very important. And things are about to go completely off the rails, so I want to get these 3 things out of the way before we get to that. The first thing is, I think the director's only direction to the actress playing Lula was to look horny no matter what the situation was. The third thing is, Nicolas Cage is doing an Elvis Presley impression the whole movie. And as I've mentioned in past reviews and stuff, impressions and voices are not Nicolas Cage's strong suit, and it's not much better in this movie. Now, it's obvious that it's trying to be Elvis Presley, it's just not very good. Why he's doing an Elvis Presley voice, I'm not sure, but he is. The third thing I want to talk about is the obscene amount of references to The Wizard of Oz. I mean, they are constant throughout the movie. From random cutaways to a crystal ball for some reason, to witch laughter throughout the movie, or even just straight up references to The Wizard of Oz. It is to the point where it is just constant. And from here on out, every time there's a mention in any way of The Wizard of Oz or any reference to it, I will bring it up just so you can understand how often it happens, and I have no clue why. It adds nothing to the movie. It makes no sense. Hi, sorry for the change in location. I was filming by my kitchen, and every time my refrigerator would come on, it made a super loud noise, and I would have to stop filming until it was over, and that got super annoying, so I've changed locations. Lula and Sailor finally go out dancing, and I'm telling you, Sailor is probably the greatest dancer of all time. Take notes, Australia.
They not like us. They not like us.
While Sailor's off doing his thing, dancing around, gyrating uncontrollably, some guy dances up on Lula. And Sailor notices this, and he puts his hand up and stops the band just by putting his hand up, because Sailor is the main character. Sailor says to the guy, basically, you owe my girl an apology for dancing up on her like that. And this guy makes the mistake of a lifetime. He insults Sailor's snake skin jacket. Now, even after Sailor explains how important and what the snakeskin jacket means to him, this guy just doesn't get it. And for Sailor, you can dance up on his girl without his consent. That's one thing, but you don't insult the snakeskin jacket. So Sailor kicks this guy's ass, makes him apologize to Lula, and then something unexpected happens. Now, this is the point where I decided that I need to make a standalone video for this movie, because what happens next truly just comes out of nowhere. Now, I've told you all about this movie, and at no point have I mentioned that it is a musical of anyone performing music, but Sailor now sings a full song. Now, I'm being completely honest here. This isn't a joke. I'm not being sarcastic. Nicolas Cage kinda kills this performance. It's actually pretty good. But there's a few problems with this whole thing. One, the band that's playing is a super hardcore heavy metal band. And I'm not saying just because you play heavy metal you don't know other music. But every band member knows how to play this song perfectly. Rehearsed perfectly. So that's just a little weird. And also, they put these screams in, because it's an Elvis Presley song, and Nicolas Cage is doing an Elvis Presley impression the whole movie, and you know how in his performances and stuff, the ladies would scream and stuff? Well, I guess they wanted that here, but they did it in editing, and it just sounds really off. As he's performing it, Lula hits the maximum level of horniness. Her horny levels are through the roof. But to be fair to her, anyone would get this horny if Nicolas Cage was singing this song to them. After all this, they go back to the hotel room, and once again, they form a one-piece band all night long. Alright, quick Wizard of Oz reference alert. Lula says this.
Sailor baby, you ever think something and hear a wind and see the wicked witch of the east coming flying in?
I don't understand why there's so many references to the Wizard of Oz. Honestly, not much important happens in this scene. They talk about smoking for a while, and Sailor talks about how he started smoking when he was 4, and that both of his parents died of lung cancer. So for this movie, honestly, that's pretty tame. Lula does say some strange things after they do the old slap and tickle. Right afterwards, she says Sailor reminds her of her father, which I think is an odd thing to say after you just knocked boots with somebody. Now that they're in one location, I can talk about the worst villain entrance of all time. Marietta gets impatient with Johnny, so she calls Marcelo Santos to come help. After she asks, he says this.
You want me to shoot Sailor in the brains with a gun?
Yes.
In the forehead?
Yes.
Wrong. It's always better to blow a hole through the back of the head, right through to the bridge of the nose. Lots of irreparable brain damage.
I get that he's trying to be intimidating, but I don't think it matters which side of the brain you shoot someone in, Now, I'm no doctor, but I feel like if you get shot in the brain, you just die. Dumb murder stuff aside, Marcelo Santos says he'll do it, but only if he gets to kill Johnny as well. Now, Marietta goes all, no, please, no, don't kill Johnny, no, please, no, and doesn't really put up much of a fight to save his life. Then, for some reason, we're having a quick check back in with our two lovers, Sailor and Lula. Sailor's showing off his great dance moves, and Lula's super horny, so everything is business as usual over there. We then go back to Marcelo Santos on the phone talking to a man named Mr. Reindeer. Now, I wish I could show you this scene because the reveal at the end of it is hilarious. As they're talking about, I want you to kill this guy, evil stuff, it pans out at the end, and Mr. Reindeer, that whole conversation, had been sitting on the toilet. Now, the reason I can't show you is, unfortunately, in the same scene, there's a naked lady dancing. So YouTube is kind of not for stuff like that, so I can't show you. And it continues to baffle me and confuse me as to what tone this movie has. Mr. Reindeer then calls two more people to have them kill Johnny and Sailor, which I kind of find funny because it reminds me of the Star Wars meme of Palpatine asks Count Dooku to kill Padme, and Count Dooku then hires Boba Fett, and then Boba Fett then hires that other bounty hunter. That other bounty hunter uses the worms all to kill Padme. It's the same kind of thing. Marietta asks Marcelo Santos to kill Sailor, and so Marcelo Santos then calls Mr. Reindeer, then Mr. Reindeer then calls a different hit person. Now, one last important thing to note, this house that he calls is going to be important later, so remember it. It's going to be important, I promise. Our cute couple arrive in New Orleans. Now, I know what you're thinking. Wait, but aren't they going to California? Yes. Why are they in New Orleans? I don't know. I guess Lula really likes New Orleans for some reason, so they went way out of their way and went to New Orleans. And as they ride into New Orleans, the focus goes off them and onto two guys walking down the street. And it lingers on this shot for way too long. Like, way too long. And they're making these very strange noises. But their screen time is interrupted by Sailor and Lula once again doing the old twist and shout. Believe it or not, we have another Wizard of Oz reference. Lula says whenever they make love, it's like she's going over the rainbow. Gross. That's a sweet, innocent song. Don't do that. Also, if you've lived your life wondering the quality of Nicolas Cage's genitals, don't worry. All your wonders will be answered in this scene. Lula says they are the sweetest in the whole world. So, there you go. They go out on the town and make some thrilling conversation.
Pigeons spread diseases and mess up the place. You see that? Yeah.
I'd just like to say that was unedited by me. That is what was actually in the movie. In this next scene, it shows us Marietta, and she is not doing well. Now, despite how she lies and manipulates Johnny throughout this movie, she does care about him a little bit, I guess. So she calls Santos basically because she had second thoughts and doesn't want Johnny to die. Santos could give a shit about what she has to say. So he just basically says no and hangs up, and Marietta loses her mind. But we will check back in on her probably in part 2 of this video. Right after this, once again, of course, we cut to a random scene of a crystal ball. I don't get it. I don't know at this point, am I dumb? Am I missing some obvious connection between this weird story about an 18-year-old and a guy who's almost 30 being in love and The Wizard of Oz? I don't understand it, and it's getting to the point that I feel dumb, like that I'm missing something. So if you know, please help me. After the stupid crystal ball goes away, we see Sailor and Lula at a restaurant, and Sailor is recounting an escapade he had back in the day. And if you were wondering if he had a boner at the time of the story, well,
Ma'am, I had a boner with a capital O.
now that you know that information, I'm sure you're all hot and heavy getting worked up because Lula sure was. So, just like they always do in this movie, they go back to their hotel and start restarting the internet all night long. Now a topic that I wish I wasn't about to talk about, but here goes nothing. I have watched Nick Cage make love for movies a lot. I've watched a lot of his movies, and he does a lot of the nasty on them. And before I say what I'm about to say, I am in no way an expert on this topic. I spend most of my time watching Nicolas Cage movies. But Nicolas Cage in his lovemaking scenes, he's so robotic and aggressive. It's very strange. I wish I could show you examples. If you go watch the movies, you'll see what I'm talking about. But obviously, YouTube, I can't show that stuff here. It's just always so aggressive and awkward and not sexy in any way. Although, in my opinion, most sex scenes in movies aren't sexy and usually just super awkward anyway. But Nicolas Cage is on just another level when it comes to the awkwardness. And I think that's part of why this movie probably missed the mark of the feel that it wanted to have, because there's so many scenes like that in this movie, and Nicolas Cage is just always so funny in them, if I'm being honest. Well, the formula for this movie continues, because after they're done with their horizontal square dancing, they again have another interesting conversation. Lula tells Sailor about a cousin that she had, and this cousin was severely mentally ill. He loved Christmas. He believed that aliens were ruining Christmas. He'd stay up all night long making sandwiches, and he would put cockroaches in his underwear and stick them up where the sun don't shine. Before we wrap up part 1, there is one more Wizard of Oz reference in this scene. After the whole story about the mentally ill cousin, Sailor says that he wishes that he just could have talked to the Wizard of Oz or whatever, and gotten some good advice, which I watched this movie in 7th grade and wasn't really paying attention, so I'm nowhere near an expert on the Wizard of Oz, but wasn't he like fake or like a lie or something? For a movie that references the Wizard of Oz so much, I feel like they just completely got that wrong, but I could be wrong as well. Well, that seems as good a place as any to end part 1. Thank you for watching. Part 2 will be up in next 1 to 2 weeks. We will see how quickly I can get that done. But thank you for watching. If you enjoyed it, like, subscribe, share. If you have seen this movie, let me know what you think about it in the comments down below. But once again, thank you for watching. Bye.